So what if the biggest conflict happening in the world right now had nothing to do with politics? What if it was actually spiritual? We're about to dive into a source that makes exactly that case. It starts with how groups demand loyalty, and believe me, it ends with a pretty provocative question about where you stand. Let's get right into it. Okay, so first up, how do groups keep their members on the same page? Well, the source lays out some pretty classic methods. You know the drill. It's all about creating an us versus them world by painting the other side as dangerous, maybe even less than human. Then you bring in your own loyal experts to back up your story, and if anyone starts to waver, you threaten to kick them out, or worse. These are really powerful tools for control, and they kind of set the stage for the bigger idea here. But here's where it gets interesting. The source argues that these old-school group dynamics are now playing out in a totally new field. It suggests that underneath all the political and social noise we hear every day, a completely different kind of conflict is starting to bubble up. So, what's it all about? And here it is. These are the two sides in this brewing spiritual conflict. It's not about being left or right, or from one country or another, nope. According to this source, the real divide is between people who see humanity as fundamentally spiritual and a group it just calls the unaware. And what's really important here is that the unaware aren't being called evil or anything. They're just, well, unaware of this spiritual side of things. And because of that, they end up on the other side by default. But hold on, what does spiritual even mean in this context? It's not just some vague, fuzzy feeling. The source defines it as a very active state of being. It involves a certain level of consciousness, an awareness of what a spirit is supposed to do, and yeah, the responsibilities that come with that knowledge. It's really about knowing, not just believing. And this leads to a really powerful point about personal accountability. The source is crystal clear on this. Being unaware or being influenced by a group is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. In this way of looking at things, every single person is responsible for their own actions and for their inaction. There's just no passing the buck. And that idea of personal responsibility gets even heavier because the source suggests this isn't just a battle of human ideas. It actually argues that real spiritual forces are involved. And that, completely changes the game. This goes from a simple disagreement to something way, way more profound. To help us understand how these forces might tell people apart, the text brings up a really famous parallels from the Bible, the Passover story. Remember that? A physical mark, the blood on the door, was a super clear external sign. It identified who belonged to a specific group, and because of that, who was protected from a destructive spiritual force. And on the flip side, the source points to the book of Revelation. It talks about a completely different kind of mark, one on the forehead that shows you're aligned with darkness. So in these ancient texts, you have these two powerful examples of marks for spiritual identification, one meaning protection, the other not so much. Okay, so here's the punchline. This is what the source has been building to. These marks aren't just stories from old books. The claim is that all of us, right here, right now, are unconsciously sending out our own emissions or marks that show our spiritual alignment. It's not something you choose to put on. It's just something that comes from you. And this brings us to the final and I think really challenging question that the source poses. It's a question for every single one of us. It takes this whole big concept, from groupthink to spiritual warfare, and makes it intensely personal. When this spiritual battle really gets going, which way will your mark, your missions, align? It's definitely something to think about.